Under the influence of diphenhydramine, I observed many fascinating and mysterious closed-eye visuals, but none more intriguing than the appearance of an infinite corridor with many numbered doors. This corridor, which sometimes remained partially visible for days after the drug had worn off, became a consistent feature in my diphenhydramine trips. It inspired such a powerful sense of curiosity in me that I became addicted to diphenhydramine in my pursuit of discovering the meaning of this mysterious tunnel and what lay behind its endless rows of doors. Behind these doors, I saw breathtaking and indescribable wonders, which will never leave me, but for the purpose of this video, I have divided my corridor experiences into 4 distinct scenarios, and will now try my best to explain each one. In the first scenario, this being the most common of the 4, doors would open into places I recognised, in a manner which I would liken most to the phenomenon of remote viewing. Although whether or not these visions were real, or were conjured by my imagination, I do not know. I remember distinctly a couple of occasions wherein I was as a fly on the wall in my friend's shed, this being the place where we hung out during the day, and I was able to observe my friend from where I lay on my bed, observing him and feeling stunned by the clarity with which I could see him. Indeed, I could see every detail of the shed so clearly, even more clearly, it seemed to me, than I ever had with my eyes open, including every discarded roach and tobacco pouch which littered the floor of the shed, and beyond that the concrete beneath it, with every little valley which was carved into its surface appearing about a mile high, and every little pebble as if they were boulders. In addition to this, these visions were also sometimes accompanied by segments of audio. For on more than one occasion, I heard vague portions of conversations my friend was having on the phone, albeit never clearly enough to discern, through questioning him, the authenticity of these conversations, and to this day I still do not know if they ever really took place. On a slightly less often basis, doors would open into places that I had never visited in person, but still recognised as being earthly. There is one particular occurrence this happened, which has always stood out in my memory, and it transpired when a door opened out onto the top level of a particularly ancient and exotic looking temple, likened unto a pyramid, such as were constructed by the Aztecs, and which was built at a very high altitude. For round about me I could see diverse mountain ranges, illuminated before me by the light of the moon, with their snow-capped peaks appearing to pierce the very heavens above me, whilst below me were so many deep valleys and steep ravines that they were beyond number, and for as long as I was able to look upon this vision, I was in awe of it, for it was so brilliant in its clarity that I cannot describe to you its splendour and its extent. On another particularly memorable occasion, a door opened into the middle of Times Square, where it appeared to be late evening, and all around me I could see people numbering in their hundreds and their thousands, weaving every which way on the streets, and on the roads all manner of traffic, various headlights and taillights emitting sharp auras which merged one with another, and above them a variety of brightly lit advertisements flooded the scene before me with vibrant light, casting long shadows on the streets below, whilst the skyscrapers they were adjoined to towered above me as far as my eye could see, and I was witness to this scene for perhaps only a couple of seconds, but I will never forget it. In the second scenario, which tended to occur a little less often than the first, doors opened into chaotic landscapes, which were completely alien to me, such which conformed not to the physical boundaries of three-dimensional space, but in some inexplicable way appeared to exceed it. Herein I frequently observed proud-looking pillars, such which were arranged among curious obelisks and stone monoliths, with strange foreign symbols carved into their surfaces. This was a place I can only liken unto a twilight zone of sorts, for there is nothing else I know of with which I can compare it to, and the spectacle of it inspired as much awe as it also did puzzle me. Moreover, on a couple of occasions after beholding such visions as this, I experienced paranormal occurrences, such as hearing what would be said on the TV before it was said, and in such a convincing manner that the naive user may mistake this sort of phenomena for authentic supernatural activity, this being something altogether different, which comes from another source. Let it be known, therefore, that the delirium and hallucinogenic effects of this drug are, in my opinion, inspired in varying degrees by deceiving spirits, and as such, much unwanted paranormal activity, not limited to recurring episodes of sleep paralysis and violent nightmares in the days following a recreational dose of diphenhydramine, may be avoided by simply steering well clear of it, as I now do myself after being constantly tormented throughout the period I was using it. In the third scenario, this being a somewhat rare occurrence, doors opened into rooms which would oftentimes have features borrowed from places I have visited, both past and present. These rooms were filled always with random objects, some which were familiar to me, and others which were not. And as I studied the arrangement of these objects, I would discover I was looking at, as it were, a visual puzzle of sorts, an enigma which, when decoded, contained a hidden message for me, much as if my unconscious mind was communicating new insights to my conscious mind by way of these visions, and they fascinated me. Nonetheless, this type of scenario did not occur frequently, and of a few times it did, I can recall very little now. In the fourth scenario, this being the rarest, a door would open into a bizarre two-dimensional plane, wherein everything was completely flat, but nonetheless vibrant and diverse, and these peculiar voids were invariably inhabited by a variety of menacing-looking entities, such as which bore a remarkably cartoon-like semblance in their appearance, but were also unlike any cartoon characters I had seen before. And these creatures were terrible before me, and I could not look upon them for any longer than a couple of seconds, even when I tried. And upon reflection, this was perhaps a mercy unto me, for this type of vision was always accompanied by an awful sense of dread, as if I were looking at something so inexplicably wicked and awful that the sight of it I simply could not bear. For now, this is all I can recall of my adventures in this most curious corridor, and I hope you have enjoyed hearing of them. This said, I strongly advise against using diphenhydramine in any sort of misguided attempt to reproduce the sort of experience I have described here, as it is an extremely dangerous drug which is incredibly disorientating, unpredictable, and one which produces a long-lasting high, which is for the most part menacing and always accompanied by a variety of intolerable side effects, such as which often induced a state of agony in me, and many were the times I regret having took it. As always, I advise practicing harm reduction techniques when using drugs recreationally, including informing yourself of and then avoiding dangerous combinations, and abiding by the recommended dosages which can be found on websites such as Erowid, Tripsit and Psychonaut Wiki, which I have provided links to in the information section below this video. This is Enigma saying God bless you and peace out.